Hello guys, it's your boy Vortex, and for today's video I would like to briefly talk about Christopher Nolan's latest movie, Dunkirk. I just came back from the theater watching it, and I have to say, great fucking movie. But hold your horses, there are some problems as well, and we'll get to them further on. But before we begin, I have to say that this will be a spoiler review, so if you have not seen the movie yet, I advise you to turn this shit off and go watch it right now. Let's begin. The first thing that I noticed is in the opening scene of the movie. We see one of the main characters walking down the street with a few fellow soldiers, and they get attacked, and all of his friends get picked off one by one. Then he makes his way through a few encampments, then he reaches the beach. And this is basically where the entire movie takes place, at least for this guy's plotline. When he reaches the beach, you get to see hundreds of thousands of soldiers just lined up here waiting to get their turn to board a ship over to Dover. Well, that's what this man sees as soon as he reaches the beach. Then a German dive bomber appears out of nowhere and starts to target the soldiers lined up at the beach. And then they throw themselves down onto the beach to avoid shrapnel coming their way. Bombs are falling down everywhere, killing a few soldiers. But then as soon as the raid is over, the German plane flies away. All of the soldiers just stand up, they get back in their exact lines once again. It's beautifully choreographed. Like, this obviously isn't the first time this happens. They have no choice. They have to get back in the line and wait for their turn. I fucking loved that opening scene. It was gorgeous. Now, the main premise of this movie is that it follows 3 separate plot lines. Maybe 4 if you count one extra, but let's try and stick to 3. I will mention the 4th one briefly, but yes, let's stick to 3 main plot lines. The first one is on the beach, following the man we saw in the beginning of the movie, as well as the Rear Admiral who supervises the entire evacuation. The Rear Admiral might be counted as a 4th plot line, but I'm not gonna do it. So we have the beach, and then we have a father and a son, as well as their close friend. They're going to cross over onto Dunkirk to try and extract as many soldiers as they can. So that's the plotline in the sea. And then we have 3 Spitfire planes in the air, with Tom Hardy as the main protagonist up there, who are trying to reach Dunkirk to provide air cover for the soldiers over there. And on their way, they encounter dive bombers, Messerschmitts, as well as bomber planes trying to take out the evacuating ships. So, those are the 3 main plot lines set up across the movie. Set up like that, these 3 plot lines take place relatively independent from one another until, like, the end when they start to clash. The thing is that these 3 plot lines take place during 3 different times of the Dunkirk evacuation. For example, the father and the boy who is crossing from England to Dunkirk takes about a day. They start like in the afternoon and then arrive in Dunkirk like 24 hours later. While Tom Hardy and the Spitfires, they arrive at the battle at the last hour. So even though we follow them throughout the entire movie, all the scenes we see them in are in the last hour of the evacuation. While the guy at the beach, he tries to get off during the entire time the boy and his father is crossing the English Canal. And I think this is a fucking genius way of telling a story. I mean, obviously it has been done before. We've seen it tons of times. We follow one character's story arc, and then it ends. And then we see another character's story arc. These 2 start off exactly the same, but it deviates when the characters go their separate ways. And then towards the end, they all wind up at the same place and solve the problem they're put in. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, it's time to talk a little bit about pacing and why it's important in a movie like this. The pacing and tone play a vast role in this movie, and since they keep switching from plotline to plotline, from character to character, it's important that they keep the tone and the pacing in line. Okay, I'm gonna use Star Wars here as an example, because most of the people out there have seen Star Wars and will be easy for you guys to relate. Okay, in Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, the end game of this movie is destroy the Death Star. That is the only scene we get to follow. We see Luke and the rest of the X-Wing fighters trying to take down the Death Star. Okay, that's it. In Empire Strikes Back, however, we follow two plotlines. We follow the Bespin duel between Luke and Vader, as well as Leia and the Lando Calrissian trying to escape. So we follow two plotlines. In Return of the Jedi, we follow the Battle of Endor down on the forest moon. We follow the space battle and Lando Calrissian trying to fly into the Death Star superstructure and blow it up. And we follow Luke Skywalker's final battle with Darth Vader. Those are three plotlines. They basically have the same tone. The forest moon battle has a little more humor, and the Death Star duel has a bit more darker and ominous feel to it, but they are still exciting. They have basically the same tone, but with a few variations. So jumping from plotline to plotline in that movie isn't very distracting. You still follow the plot, you're still invested in it. That's when we get to the prequel movies. In A Phantom Menace, we get to follow Anakin Skywalker as he flies into the droid control ship and tries to blow it up from the inside. Okay, this is a scene where we're supposed to feel excitement. We're flying across the vastness of space, trying to avoid those vicious vulture droids, etc., etc. So that's an exciting moment. At the same time, we follow the epic fucking duel with Darth Maul inside of the Theed reactor core. And even though it's not emotionally investing, it's still very sped up and energetic. So we're supposed to feel like, yeah, we'll kick his ass, right? And yeah, sure, it's fucking epic. Not saying it's good, but it's epic. As well as Padme trying to infiltrate the Theed palace to capture Viceroy Gunray. And we're supposed to feel a similar feeling to the space battle. And then we cut all of a sudden to the Gungan battle outside of Theed, where we are supposed to feel humored by Jar Jar's clumsy actions. And it's a massive fucking shift in tone. We go from excitement to epic fucking battle with this evil bad guy to clumsy guy almost gets his entire battalion killed in goofy ways. Okay, it doesn't work. It brings me out of the movie completely. And that's tone for you.
In a space of about 90 seconds, you go from lamenting the death of, a hero, to escape, to slightly comedic with Jar Jar, to Anakin returning.
What's your assessment of this alert? It's a clusterfuck.
So, now that we have established how important the tone is for a movie, we can talk about how fucking amazing they do it in Dunkirk. Even though we follow 3 separate plot lines that takes place in 3 different locations, one at the beach, one in the air, and one at the sea, they still manage to maintain the same tone through all 3 plot lines when it's important. Even though with slight variations, it's still low-key the same tone. So for example, we see Tom Hardy, he's trying to protect his wingman from a bandit, and you don't know if he's gonna succeed or not before he takes his friend out. And that's very fucking important, because if his friend goes, he will be all alone up there, and he won't be able to protect the people trying to get the soldiers off the beach, which puts the father and the son who is out there in danger, and also puts our guy on the beach in danger, since he might not be able to get off there. Okay, so that's Tom Hardy's situation. Out in the ocean, we have the father and the son, who is worrying about bomb raids, which is dependent on Tom Hardy succeeding up there. Okay, And then at the beach, we have our character being bombed, shot at, staying in cover, bullets flying and stuff, almost drowning a few times. So things are not going well for any of these characters. And it's basically the same tone for all these three plot lines in these scenes. If Tom Hardy fucks up, the bombers will be able to fuck the father and the son, and then they won't be able to get our guy off the beach. See what I mean? And the music still has the same shifts as the scene cuts from person to person. And that's what the movie gets so fucking right. It's extremely hard to do this when you cut from plotline to plotline, but what the movie gets right is that they do it so seamlessly and simply retaining the tone. I know I've prattled on about this point for so long, but trust me, if you watch this movie and keep in mind what I said just now, you will understand how important it is. The movie does, however, have one major problem, and when I say problem, take that with a grain of salt. Because there is a major counter-argument against this, so I have conflicting opinions of which I prefer, but just hear me out. The main problem in the movie are the characters. The movie clearly focuses on trying to get the viewers into Dunkirk in the midst of battle, trying to experience the horrors of war. And thus it loses focus on establishing characters. Basically, the characters in this movie have no depth whatsoever. There is basically one, and that's the father trying to get him, his son, and their close friend across the English Canal. The father has a little bit of character, but none of the others have any character whatsoever. They are generic soldier number 1 through 10, basically. So that's basically the main issue of the movie. But you can't let that shine away from the fact that the movie takes the focus away from the character and sets it to establishing Dunkirk as a living hell. So whether you think the sacrifice of character development was worth it for the experience of war is basically the win or lose of the movie. So, overall, Dunkirk, great fucking movie. A few nitpicks here and there, so I highly recommend this movie. And I encourage you guys to go see it. It's very, very interesting. I mean, sure, there are better war movies out there than this one, for sure. But since the competition hasn't really been that big for great movies this year, this one definitely takes a prize as a good movie this year, I have to say. This is my first impression of this movie, and I might do an update on this once I've seen it a second time. So far, I would have to say that I haven't seen much of the details, just the overall thing. But until I do, I state that this was a good fucking movie. So yeah, guys, go check out this movie. It's worth the money, man. Okay? I'll see you in the next video.